Hello gamers, this is Islam and welcome to my video where I talk about how to properly configure Apex Legends to get the best experience between game quality and performance. Well, there are a lot of other similar guides maybe about this, but the reason why this is special is that it technically explain everything. Why you should not limit your frame rates, whether you should enable or disable G-Sync. We are going to throw a lot of other stuff actually, not only this. The first thing that I will have to talk about is how to properly configure the game at the first time installing it, depending on what kind of hardware you own, from low-end CPUs to high-end ones. We are going by CPUs. When we are talking about competitive games, we actually care a lot about the CPU. It's the most important part. You will need nothing but the MSI Afterburner for this. So let's get started. Now, so here we are after we installed game. The first thing that we are going to do is to make sure Windows Sonic for 7.1 surround system is enabled. To do this, we are going to here and to open sound settings, go down here to sound control panel, and to speakers, properties, to spatial sounds, and make sure this is turned on. Once it is turned on, you will see it here, down here, enabled. Alright, I don't trust this one. You could just put this here, but I don't trust it. Sometimes I enable from here and it's not actually enabled, so I go through all of this again and again, and all these steps, then G special. Well, it's worth the deal. Anyway, here we are. Once we are done, now after that we are going to close, then go to save game files in documents. Well, we did not open the game first. You have to open the game at least one time after installing it before going to configuration file, because the file is not even there before the game gets launched. So we are going to save game files. It's in C, users, username, saved games, respawn, Apex, local, and settings saves you. This is what are we going to edit right now. We are opening this with a notepad and go down to voice. Where is it actually? Sound num speaker. This is the number of speakers. So when you set this value to 8, this means you have 8 speakers. Well, the game will output to 8 channels. If your system have 7.1 virtual surround enabled, it will does that quite well. If it does not, then you will face a lot of problems. So make sure this is turned on and this set to 8. Then save and close. After that, you have to go to Apex. Now inside the games you will see that the game actually will tell you what are the sound system you got, but that is just a fake thing. You don't have to rely on it. It just does not tell the truth. It tells what the game sees. The game sees no actual surround device. Alright, it shows a stereo. It sees a stereo, but you can force it to output a 7.1 virtual surround. Alright, in some systems you don't really need any of this. In some systems everything get configured properly at the first launch if you are lucky. If you are lucky enough, you will get to audio here and see that your Windows audio configuration is set to 7.1 surround sound. Now it's set to headphone stereo. It's not surround sound, but it's virtually surround sound, so it's actually doing 7.1. Now this does not matter at all. As long as you have this set to 8, in settings, num speaker set to 8, and you have that 7.1 enabled. You don't have to worry about anything else. Now it's time to move on to game parameters that you should not use. Alright, some YouTubers recommend some command lines that you should never use. One of these is settings high. Right, if you know that, you go to game properties and advanced launch options. Here you set the command line arguments. Now these command lines high. This command line will prioritize game frame rates, the higher frame rates, over optimizing mouse inputs and game performance. What is actually going on? I mean, by game performance is what is actually going on. So we'll get a couple of frame higher, and your game experience will suffer, completely suffer. For some, this may be unnoticeable, but for others, it will be frustrating. So never, ever use that command, as it does not do anything to make your experience in game better. Now, moving on to the second idea about setting frame rates. Now, there are some weird guys on the internet about fixing game input lag by setting frame limits to 60. Alright, you get 60 limits only. I mean, seriously, this is a competitive game and it's completely unplayable at these frame rates because input lag goes crazy high below 80 FPS. So instead of trying to limit frame and limit our experience, we are going to use the right configuration to get most out of our PC experience in the game. So to conclude this, you should never ever use any kind of command arguments and leave empty as it is, unless you get some high-end CPUs. We will talk about that later for competitive configuration. Now it's time to set the unique settings for AMD, for Apex Legends in our NVIDIA or AMD control panel. Now you go to NVIDIA control panel. Alright, where is? Here it is. You go to adjust image settings and use the advanced image. Alright, make sure this is set, and then go to 3D settings, go to program settings and choose Apex Legends. If it's not here, then press add and find it there somewhere. Now here you go. The image sharpening. Alright, you don't have to use this, but I am using that additionally. You don't have to use this. On native resolution, you don't have to use this. So you can use it or not, depends on your settings. Now in global settings, there is something interesting here. It's not found in program settings. It's only in global settings, which is GPU scaling. Make sure this enabled always, right? We will talk about why later. This must be enabled always. Now once you enable that, you go back to program settings again and make sure that anisotropic filtering is off, anti-aliasing is off. Anti-aliasing, the gamma correction is actually a passive way, so it does not use a performance, so it's a good way to make it to set it on. Anti-aliasing mode off, no aliasing needed. Low latency should be set to ultra, and max frame rate, no max frame rate. OpenGL rendering auto. Alright, power management, keep optimal power, you don't have to change. The preferred refresh rate should be set to highest available. Now shader cache should be set to on. This is going to be helpful for better performance. Now texture, anisotropic sample options, well, this mostly is not needed. Well, optimization is not needed. You don't need this one, but it won't hurt if you keep it on. It's not going to affect the performance. Now about the texture negative, it's a negative low DPS. And negative stuff does not use performance, so allow it. Now about the texture filtering quality, use the highest performance. About the trilinear optimization on, threaded optimization auto, triple buffering off, and vertical sync off. Alright, you see these settings. exactly. You have to set them one by one for the game, and then press apply. Don't forget to press apply. Alright, after that we are going to make sure that system is clean of other distracting problems, so that will programs that can bark some of your CPU resources. So press WinR. This is actually WinR. Let's WinR and type msconfig here. Go ahead to services and hide all Microsoft services, then disable all if you don't want to disable some features you really would like them to stay. You may disable others that you don't need. Make sure to disable everything you really rarely need. You don't keep anything, and then go to startup. Open task manager and disable any startup application that you don't use every time you start your PC. Startup application that you use every time you start your PC should be stayed enabled. Now after we are done, you are going to press OK and restart your system. Alright, I will not restart, but you will do that. Now, so let's go ahead and talk about how to configure the game settings for the best experience. Now, let's start with game graphics settings depending on your CPU ability, not the GPU. We mostly care about the CPU because the CPU is what actually going to decide what is the what are your frame rates, how good your frame rates are. CPU will decide that, not the GPU. The GPU will decide just the number, but how these frame rates are going, frame rate, how good you're pacing, the time between each frame is should be maintained well. The CPU decide how good your experience is, not the GPU. The GPU can ensure that you have great quality at a high settings. So we are going to show a list of different desktop CPUs with expected minimum frame rates. Only minimum. We care about the minimum that we are going to try to target. So we take the minimum frame rate and we target the GPU. Alright? So when your CPU gets overloaded in the game, it is always before landing. When you actually flying, your CPU get overloaded. Not only your CPU, your GPU, and especially at start. So with that being said, the desktop, we are going to see the minimum frame rates and try to target it with GPU. I'll show you how. Game mostly seems to care about overall CPU performance. It favors multi-core over performance over single core to a certain degree. Note that we are not going to show the average frame rates because this is not how we do in competitive games. With that being said, let's show some list of minimum expected FPS. Now, in the 45 FPS, now the Ryzen 3 1200 can do at least 45 FPS. Well, this looks good for an old bad CPU. A cheap worthless CPU can do 45 FPS at a minimum. So whatever your GPU is, you are going to start configuring the graphic settings until you reach nothing lower 45. You have to make sure that you never go lower than 45. You make sure that your CPU, you are always CPU limited. Alright? You have to make sure that you are always limited by the CPU, not by the GPU. It's an important matter to get the the best results. Now the 1200, the 2200G, the i3 6th gen, the non-K1, the unoverclocked variants can have a BCLK overclock. It's a base clock overclocking. There is a workaround for that. It should not be overclocked, but it could be overclocked with a workaround. Actually the performance gains is a lot, so you have to look into that. The i5 4th gen, when it is OC'd very well, it can do 45 FPS when it's being killed with OC. Now, how about the ones that can do 60 FPS? The casual ones. Alright, the i3 8100, i5 6th or 7th gen, the ones that are non-K ones, the non-overclocked ones, the i7 second and third gen OC. Alright, 70 FPS. What can do 70 FPS is the i3 9100, the i7 4th gen OC. What can do the 80 FPS on minimum is the Ryzen 3 3100, Ryzen 5 1600, 1600X, and the i5 6th gen when it is BCLK overclocked with a workaround with using some old BIOSes. The i5 6th gen K models, the OC'd ones, your Ryzen 7 1700 or 1700X. Alright, the one that can do 90 to 100 frames per second are the i3 10th gen, the 1000, 100, whatever this weird name. The i5 8th gen in the 9th gen, the non-K ones. Also the i5 10400 10th gen, the i7 6th gen, 7th gen, non-K locked ones, Ryzen 5 2400G or 3400G. What can do 100 to 100 FPS? The Ryzen 5 2600, 2600X. Alright, one of these guys here must be your CPU. It must be your CPU. Alright, it must be your CPU. The ones that I recommend, which are the ones that can do more than 120 FPS, are the Ryzen 5 3600, 3600X, 3700, Ryzen 7, 3700X, or so the 3800X, any Ryzen 9, any i7 from 8th gen and higher, any i5, no, not any i5, it's actually this one, exactly this one, the 10600K, which can be overclocked. Any i9, anything above 120 FPS is enough for professional level gaming in Apex. So there are recommended CPUs. These are recommended CPUs for the game. Not these CPUs are the ones that I recommend for the game. Okay, so let's start with resolution. Now, the CPU that I'm using is actually the i3 8100. Alright, we are going to set the native resolution, what maximum your monitor can do, then set everything else to disabled and low, and try a match to test frame rates before landing, and then decide according to that the next steps will be. For me, I got the i3 8100 right now and the GTX 1060, so my expected frame rates are 60. Why 60? Because my i3 can do 60. It's here in the list, so can do 60 on minimum. It actually can do it may do 144. It doesn't matter, it matters what least can do. So I'm gonna to target the least or the minimum frame rates with the GPU to get the best experience. In that way you are going to have less frame time changing when you try to target your CPU. What your CPU can do with your GPU, you're going to minimize the effect of frame rate changing. So my expected frame rates are 60, and this is what I should target. I will start by trying native and low settings, then I will start a match to test. Now let's start the game. Oh shit. Okay. Now I'll sit. Now for the test method you have to use the MSI Afterburn, which in my opinion the best overclocking and monitoring tool that must be installed in any gaming PC. So open Afterburner and go to settings, then monitoring tab. Alright, we're not going to do that right now. Go to settings, to monitoring tab, and then to CPU usage. GPU usage, set this to show on screen display, and go to CPU usage, show on screen display, every CPU you got, 4 cores, 8 cores, whatever. And don't forget to set an alarm here at max 98 to see if your CPU is actually trying hard to get your frame rates. So set this to 98, which is technically 100, but we are using lower because 98 means you are sometimes it means that you are actually 100, but it just won't reach the 100, so 98. Also go down to frame rates and set that show on screen display. Frame times also show on the screen display, and check the graph, don't forget. And in the frame time you have to do the minimum. What is your frame rates you targeting? Mine is 60. What is yours? It depends on your CPU. It totally depends on your CPU. So mine is 60. Alright, mine is 60. Now yours could be different. Now you can actually use a sound alarm. The sound alarm can make a notification sound that you are actually going lower than your target frame rates. This means that your GPU is being overloaded and your CPU is resetting. You don't want your CPU to get reset. You need the most out of your CPU in this game. You always need the most out of your CPU. You don't want the GPU to bottleneck your CPU, because in competitive games you need to make the to get the most out of your CPU. Anyway, now let's go and do my. Now here we are. I got my GPU usage here. I got my CPU usage, my frame rates, and the frame rate timings over here. This can see how good my frame rate pacing is. And the more straight this line, the more how this line is straight, the better it is. Now you see that my CPU is actually bottlenecking everything here. It's bottlenecking everything, and the GPU is almost 100. It's not 100, but it is almost 100. And now where I am on only native resolution, I've not gone any higher. Now I'll start by setting other options. Now for the brightness, alright, for the brightness, don't set this to 50. Alright, I had the best monitor that can actually outcomes the best contrasts, and 50 is bad. It's just bad. When you get to dark areas, it becomes way hard to spot enemies. So make it 70 or even 80. It's your choice, but don't put it on 50. It's bad. Now about the field of view, you must give this 100. Above is not good, lower is not good. It's just not good for professional gaming. If you actually competitive gamers, you're going to set this to 100. Now about the sprint view, it doesn't matter any one of this, it depends on your choice. For the FreeSync should be disabled, The adaptive, this is a broken way to uh, to target FPS, so don't try this. You get no visual quality, you get no extra performance. It's just dumb, don't use it. About the anti-aliasing, now the other stuff here will be decided after we make sure that our CPU is not being delayed by our GPU. So we want the CPU to always work in his best cases and the GPU to just help him to do the stuff. We don't want the other story. Now let's go ahead and try again. Okay, now I set native resolution, as you said, 1080p low settings, and I'm going through. You can see that my CPU currently is doing 100 and my GPU is the bottleneck here. Well, I can't do anything about that because my GPU is the bottleneck. Now I don't care about this. What I am targeting is 60 FPS. As long as this number is not 60, I am fine. I am very fine. Now let's wait a match. Oh, this game is dying, man. Maybe it's too late time to game. Make sure that everything is set as I said. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, something I should mention here. Where is the texture streaming? Not this one. It's actually here we are in streamer mode. Just disable this one. Alright, keep it off. It will change something that will mess up your game performance. Something. There is something else somewhere. No, it's not here. Alright. Whatever. Oh my god, nobody's playing. What the fuck? We just wanna test here. Hello? Alright, I have to wait. Waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Oh, come on, please. Now, there is something I have to mention here. My GPU is doing a record, which means that it may not do the best of what it can do. Actually, it can do 130 FPS frames per second on the main menu when it's not recording. But because it is recording, it gets delayed. So make sure not to do this while you are recording. Alright. Now we are about to start. We are about to start. Oh, right, we'll skip this. Oh, please. It was 49 before. So as I said, we are targeting the 60 frames on my CPU. I'll show you how it does that. It's totally on the time before you land. Oh, finally a match. Now it should be 60, but now it's now 140.
They call this place secure.
I haven't found my limit.
Come on, friend. Time to win.
Introducing your champion.
They say death catches up to everyone. He can certainly try. I'm the jump master, which should
Run
go
fast,
without saying.
hit fast, win fast.
Doing 100%.
Can't catch what you can't see.
Getting throttled right now. Right, I have the best frames right now. My GPU is
I don't fear
almost
anything.
completely.
Can you say the same?
I can't just do anything. I can't do anything else. Alright, now.
I love this part! Booyah!
Which one? She said now just take a look at the frame base. It's good. And when you look at the
Let's explore this way.
The first is home.
Round 1. Beginning ring countdown.
Right, there we go.
I've got a flatline here. Heavy ammo here.
As you can see that the CPU can sometimes do 100, 110, 120, and the GPU is sometimes not 100%, but that's okay. You have to make sure that our CPU is not delayed
Shotgun bolt here.
by our
Level
GPU,
3.
so our GPU should
Evo
not be
shoot here.
delayed,
Level 1.
so you should not increase the other capacity. You see? Oh, I have some CPU bottleneck. CPU is 100%. Oh, most of the time. So, you call this a bottleneck? No, of course. This is a very perfectly balanced system.
Eva 8 here. Never mind. I've got an Evo shield here. It's cool. Level 2.
Alright, come on, mate.
It's go time! Why so slow? Break a leg or something? I got a wrench that can fix that. Flatline here. R301 here. Shake a leg. We've only got a minute and the ring's right there.
Lifeline deployed.
Backpack here. Evo shield here. Level 2. "45 seconds till ring close, amigos. Stop. Why so slow? Break a leg or something? I got a wrench that can fix that."
They found a new kill leader.
Yeah, you better run. Make it interesting.
We're close to the ring. Get prepared. 30 seconds
Prowler
left.
SMG here. Extended sniper mag here. Level 3. Found an extended energy mag here. Level 3. Extended light mag here. Level 3.
The ring moves in 10. I could use that.
What's that?
Jump pad out. Yeah! Ring's closing. I like pushing limits as much as the next guy, but we gotta go.
Fight starts.
Prowler SMG here.
Get use it 100% because a lot of things will be going on, and you'll see that yourself. It's not a good idea. They use second CPU.
Grappling.
Care package being delivered.
Yo, we should def check out that care package. Why so slow? Break a leg or something? I got a wrench that can fix that. What do you think is over here? Evo shield here. Level 2. It's go time!
They got the champion.
Oh, come on, baby, you need this. Alright,
Found an extended energy mag here. Level 3.
you need this.
Eyes on the map. We're spread out a lot.
Must go faster! Throwing jump pad. Why so slow?
Optics
Break a
here.
leg or something?
Close range.
I got a wrench that can fix that. Yeah, I could use that. You didn't even look like you were having fun. Lighten up, amigo.
Using grapple.
Throwing jump pad. Must go faster. New kill leader. Show off. Oh, you didn't even look like you were having fun. Lighten up, amigo.
Taking fire.
Oye, que buen trabajo. Downed one. Come on, compadre. Get up. Come on, come on, come on.
Recharging my shield. Throwing.
Back up from that.
Good kill, friend. Recharging my shield.
Mastic here. It's go time.
It's the part, right? Oh shit, they will spawn now.
Opening fire on the enemy. I am taking fire, friends. Reloading.
25
Enemy
seconds.
down. I'm reaching my drone.
Nice.
Nailed that whole
Triple take
squad.
here.
Nice.
Repairing my damages.
Round 2. Beginning ring countdown.
Now people will be sent from the sky.
Attention. Supply ship inbound.
Indeed.
Replicator being delivered.
I'm fine. Just fixing up.
Replicator incoming, friends.
Energy ammo here. Go faster! Faster, faster! Enemy spotted over there!
Looks like
Give me a second. Fixing up. I've got eyes on one of them over there. Enemy agent over there. 지나 못 봤겠지. Let's go over here. Faster, faster, faster!
Who's ready to fly on a zip line? I am.
Throwing jump pad.
Loading.
We're already in the ring. Backing out of my drone. I'm good to go. Hold on. Shields recharging.
Reloading. Took out an enemy. Taken down.
Mira, that was the last of that squad.
Very awesome. Gotta hop up here.
Round
Turbocharger.
3. Beginning ring countdown.
Shields recharging. We're all...
Giving my shields a recharge.
Attention. Delivering replicator.
Replicator incoming, friends.
I'm recalling my drone.
Fire.
I'm down. Hey, we got bad guys over there. Open. Getting shot at.
look.
The enemies are shooting at me.
Shields recharging.
Recharging shields.
You are still in this. Healing. Ah, this is taking too long. I'm fine. Just fixing up.
Giving my shields a recharge.
That was tight.
Let's go over here.
Okay.
Taking fire. Recharging my shields. Reloading.
We've got
Give me
company.
a second. Fixing up. Reloading.
Ready, set, go!
Reloading. Chua. We're already in the ring.
Delivering care package.
Package. Throwing out star. Enemy over there. Throw my grenade out. Reloading. Getting my eyes in the sky.
Great.
Wow, looks like that was the
I'm back. Logged off my drone. Signaling my drone back.
Beginning ring countdown.
Getting shot at.
It's go time.
Reload.
Downed one.
Repairing my damages. Shotgun ammo here.
I can use that. Reloading. Please tell me someone recorded that.
Took out an enemy. Getting my eyes in the sky. Executing reboot.
I like this.
Prepare yourself. We have an enemy. Taking out of my drone. I'm good to go.
30 seconds until the ring closes. You like cutting it close, huh? I dig that.
Recharging my shield. I am taking fire, friends. Recharge. I have been downed.
Reloading. Look out! Grenade! Final two. That's how we do.
Being attacked by another squad.
We just keep. Okay. What now? Jump that out.
Getting shot at.
Un momento.
I'm down. I need to get back in.
Round 5.
They tried to get rid of me.
Countdown.
They failed. Here I come, back from the sky.
Death box here.
The enemies are shooting at me.
Taking fire!
I'm down.
Not done yet. Great. I'm down. Oh, I have to heat.
I'm going to a party after this. You're not invited, but I still like you.
Alright, what's a good game? Survive again?
Warning. Ring movement in progress.
Yes, I'm inside the next ring.
A winner has been appointed.
Can't jump.
Hostile right here.
Alright, that was a good show. Not really good show, but anyway, now I noticed that sometimes I get low frame rates. In some cases, both CPU, as you say, everything. It's clear that this CPU can't do any more than casual play. You say that when my Pathfinder, I just couldn't aim at all on him when I just moved because of frame rate drop. Now anything lower than I lost because of frame rate drop, if you don't notice actually. Anything lower than 110 FPS minimum does not serve for competition. Any settings are 1080p low completely. No frame limits have to be set. Alright, so I am done. So this PC is ready. I mean, when you are the i3 and GTX 1060 are all set. These are the best settings I can do for the game. Now, how about if you are using something like Ryzen 3600, which can do a minimum of 120 FPS? This time you have to prepare your game for competition, not just a casual play as this. Now, so you have to set a frame rate limit. To set the frame rate limit, you have to close the game first, and then go to game properties, advanced options, put a plus FPS underscore max and 110 or 120, depends on your CPU. It totally depends on your CPU. Now, and once you are done, you will get the minimum will be 120, the maximum will be 120, the average will be 120. Your game will be completely optimized for best stable frame timings, for the best experience. And here we are. Now here you get your competitive game configured for competition with stable frame timings. Now if you are using a very weak GPU that can do what your CPU minimum can do, it is time to use the lower than native resolution. Now my GPU could do the 1080p. Maybe other GPUs may not be able to do the 1080p on the CPU. Sometimes your CPU is strong, your GPU is weak, it's just very weak. Now don't worry, as long as your CPU is capable, we can lower resolution below native and use upscaling plus sharpening. Upscaling is a way that your GPU scale the image to fit your native resolution, so that you don't actually lose a lot of quality by going down. And sharpening can make sure that you keep details, well, it's a fake details written by the GPU itself, by some software mechanism, uh, to fill the missing details by lower resolution. Now you saw that it is called radion image sharpening. It's well known. It's called radion image sharpening in AMD control panel, and it's called G G image sharpening, just without advertising on NVIDIA control panel. Now the thing is that actually this thing does not open. Oh please. Oh come on. Please. Oh come on. Well, I can't actually disable any of these. Alright, it's called image sharpening. It could be visible in the game itself. If you press Alt R, maybe Alt R, it will open the Radeon overlay where you can enable the Radeon anti-lag, both Radeon anti-lag and the Radeon image sharpening. Make sure that you use the CPU scaling. I have gone through that before previously in this video. You can set autoflat here and go to add filter. It is called sharpening. Now the sharpening filter is already set to 1515. This is the NVIDIA preferred settings. You can go higher. That will introduce more artifacts, but mostly we are okay with that. And you can ignore film also. Well, you will find the best, but in best cases 80% on the image Radeon image sharpening is good enough, and maybe it's you can do more on the NVIDIA sharpening. It's a different filter actually, it's not the same filter. Now here you got the filter applied, and you see that image is more sharp in it right now, even if it's the native resolution. So your image will be sharpened well even after it's being upscaled with GPU scaling. So you have to go to display settings and Radeon settings to enable that. In display settings there is global setting, graphic settings, and display settings. Make sure to enable GPU scaling and preserve aspect ratio always. Now I will have to discuss something else about this. Alright, now you can set some custom resolution. If for example my monitor is 1080p, alright, I can't go lower than 720p in game settings, but you can actually do that by using some custom settings in the control panel. In the NVIDIA control panel, which is not opening, there is a section where you put a custom resolution. So after you insert custom resolution in your NVIDIA control panel, you have to go to see users, username, saved games, respawn, apex, local, and this is going to be edited right now. You go down here to settings default. It's 1920 by 1080. Now let's say how you actually change that. Now alright, let's say how you get the 1080p monitor. Alright, and you have a good CPU that can do 90 FPS. Alright, you get a good CPU that can do 90 FPS minimum, but your GPU can do even 720p. On Apex, Alright, Ryzen 5 3400G is an example. It actually can do 90 FPS on minimum, but the Vega integrated GPU can't barely do 720p. So even if you have OC'd proper dual channel memory, you can't actually, there is not enough bandwidth. While you can't go lower in the game video settings configuration in the game, but you can change the configuration file. To do that, you have to take a note of your monitor aspect ratio. Mine is 16:9, and then create another set of resolutions to try them. For example, put 9 times X, out comes Y. Then put 16 again times X, out comes Z. So here's your resolution will be Y by Z. You put any number lower than 120 times 9. For example, 110 times 9, 100 times 9, 90 times 9, whatever. For example, 9 times 60, out comes 540. Then 16 times 60, out comes 960. So here's the resolution, 960 by 540. You now you found 960 by 540 very unclear, even with sharpening settings. So you decided to increase that. For example, 9 times 66, out comes 594, and 16 times 66, out comes 1056. So the new resolution will be 1056 by 9594. You set that here, 5, for example, 594 and 1056. And I think you should not sacrifice more frames and go higher, because you will enjoy winning more than resolution in the end. Now it's time to discuss if you should enable G-Sync or FreeSync. If you already have that supported by your monitor and your GPU, some monitors will lose some features by turning on G-Sync. For example, the anti-motion blur. The 1 millisecond anti-motion blur, in that case, using anti-motion blur is favored rather than G-Sync. You should not enable G-Sync or FreeSync when this feature can disable anti-motion blur, because you will need motion blur reduction more than this less useful feature that will introduce some additional input lag. FreeSync and G-Sync actually introduce another additional input lag, but it's so minimal. But it does, and when your frame rates are low, you don't want that additional lag, and you actually don't want the bots to be more shitty. You don't want the monitor to lose the anti-motion blur. Now, if your monitor does not lose any feature by turning on G or FreeSync, then you can turn it on. Now it's time for aim training and finding your personal sensitivity. This is going to be another video. It's not full of text, of course. I suggest watching the video over and over again to make sure that you did not miss anything. So that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe. It was Islamic name, and this is Packet Loss Gamer.